Hello and welcome to the Real Biz Life Chronicles, where we discuss all things business, branding and life. I'm your host, Tracy Fryer. Super excited as we are coming to you from the Horizon Digital Podcast Studio that my guest today has so generously offered for us to record from today. I met this person at a business retreat in, I think it was about September, roundabout.
Yeah, sounds right.
And I was so taken by his quirkiness and his sense of fun. Since getting to know him a little bit better since then, I was also very taken by this person's ability to really connect and to really share with his audience. When you speak to him, it's like you've known this person for a very, very long time, except he doesn't know all your deepest, darkest secrets. Jason Seel, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate your inviting me onto the show. So
Yeah, I'm looking forward to our chat.
yeah, cool.
Tell us, Jace, what is the bravest thing you've ever done?
It's pretty tough. I don't think I do that many things that's brave. I mean, I'd say probably the biggest moment for me was I had a pretty cushy job. I was in government. I was paid well and could go home in time and have to worry too much on the weekends. I gave it up and invested everything that I saved up over a 20-year career and put it into my own business. So I think that was pretty brave because I had young kids at the time and a wife that didn't work, and she was she was thinking, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I was like, it'll be fine, don't worry, we'll make this work. Yeah. So yeah, that's I think probably the most bravest thing.
And when did you guys start Horizon Digital?
In January we will be incorporated 4 years. So pretty much like 4 years from now is when we got our first sort of project, and then it was more like just a piece of work for a friend of Jesse's, and then we just thought, this is going quite well, we should maybe turn it into a business. So we did that in January about 4 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. So biggest tips that you could share with the audience on growing your own business?
Oh, I think it's more that I think instead of tips, I'd say I wouldn't do it unless you are comfortable in not knowing if you're going to be successful or not.
Yeah.
And every day and every week is a constant challenge. And so if you're a person who likes certainty and security, it's not for you.
Definitely can relate to that.
So it's more like, I think if you've got what it takes to, if you're okay living in the unknown and just doing the best you can every day and being able to sleep at night, then you can do it. Like it takes a certain type of person, I think.
Definitely, yeah.
And being okay to fail, I think, is you've got to know that. I think you've got to give it your all so that at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, you can sit there and say, well, I couldn't have done any more. But yeah, there's no guarantees, right?
No.
So yeah, that's the hard bit. It's easy when you work for somebody else and you get your salary and you make a mistake, you still get paid. You're sick, you still get paid. You have your own business, you make a mistake, you wear it, it costs you.
Yeah.
It costs you your whole business sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of pressure to that. And then as you get staff, you've got to worry about them and their well-being and making sure that you're making enough money to pay them. And then, you've got all the complexities of debtors, people not paying you for the work you've done. Disagreements with clients. There's a whole bunch of stuff happens and it does take a lot out of you. You've got to be, a mentor. You've got to be a mother to people. You've got to be a pseudo lawyer. You've got to be a salesperson. And you've got to be highly organised, and for someone like me, I'm not very organised, so I find that the most challenging.
Yeah. And just talking of failures, how do you deal with those? Because let's face it, as business owners, we have a lot of them. What would your advice be in that area?
Yeah, I think it's really tough because I think your personality comes into it, and I'd admit that I don't like to not be liked. And so that's difficult when you're in a situation where whether it's a staff member or even a client and they're upset either because of something that's happened to them or something that's going on or some work that you haven't delivered, it's very hard to remove the emotion from that, especially because it triggers me that I think I want to please them and I want to make them happy. But at the same time, that sometimes is a direct contradiction to what's good for the business. I think that's super tough.
Yeah.
So, yeah, in those cases, I think I don't really see them as failures. I've sort of learnt over time that there's often when things don't go well, it's more of a negotiation. And I think it's not necessarily a failure until it's over. So something happens that's not great. It's how you then behave and what you do with that failure in the end that makes a difference to the people. So if it's a client, for example, and then something didn't go well on the project, you own it, you fix it, you do the right thing by the client, even if sometimes it's not really your fault. Sometimes you just wear it for the goodness of the relationship.
Yeah.
In all those cases, it's more like a trade-off where a long-term relationship, long-term client versus a short-term, I was right on this, you should pay for this, or, whatever. It's like not worth the argument, so you're kind of negotiating out of it. I think that's just business, right?
Yeah.
It's just a constant negotiation with people.
Completely.
Very often do you get the perfect client with your perfect billable rates and they pay their bill on time and everything goes well. That doesn't really happen, right? It's mostly a spectrum in between that of some sort, right?
The unicorns are rare.
Yeah. So I mean, like when we merged with Blue Sky, and I reflect on this a lot, and I've talked about this in some previous podcasts I've done with people, but at the time, it was a really good opportunity. And looking back on it, I think I would have done it so differently. But I still wouldn't call it a failure, even though that I think stuff that happened with it, it made it really tough. Made it really tough on the business, made it tough on the people, and made it tough in our personal lives. And I think things I could have done differently would have made that better, but I still wouldn't call it a failure. I call it a really big learning. And so, one of the biggest things I always talk about is when I worked in corporate before and you'd get a new leader or it would change hands, a new CEO, whatever, or you get acquired, those people will come in and they will literally fire like the entire executive team or the management team, or they'll just get rid of an entire set of people. And I always wonder, but there were some good people there. Like, there's always some good and some not good. And I thought, why wouldn't they take the time to get to know the people, figure out who's good and just move on the ones that aren't? And so when we did the Blue Sky thing, it was the same situation where I thought, I'll just get to know everybody and we'll figure out who's who. And I wouldn't say they're not good people, but in just general, in mergers, you have different values, different views. And so there's people internally who are working against what you're trying to achieve. Yeah. And then the journey to get to where you're trying to get to takes 10 times as long. And so the learning in that is now I completely understand why they come in and just clean the slate. Because you can bring in people that are aligned with your thinking versus trying to figure out who they are. And it's quite stealthy. They're stealthy around how they operate. To your face, they're aligned, and then behind the scenes, they're doing things that's not helping the business get to where it needs to get to because they don't like change. So ultimately, that was a big learning, and I think I wish that I did it differently, definitely.
So is there anything else that you would do differently now if you could go back?
Yeah, I think, and it's a really tough one. Like, it's quite, I feel like I've learned people who are really, really successful in business sometimes are people who are quite ruthless. So they wait until people are, maybe not in a good place, like other business for an acquisition or something, and really just take advantage of the situation. Yeah. And I know with Jesse and myself, we didn't like that ethos. And so we always try and do the best for everybody. And that has led to people taking advantage of the situation in a lot of cases to the point where it almost makes it unviable. And then you realise that to be able to operate in this game, sometimes you have to be a little bit sharper about what you will accept and what you won't. Yeah. But again, would I do it differently? I don't know, because I don't really want to compromise on my values.
Which is important.
Yeah, but also don't want to live on the street, so it's kind of hard, So yeah, maybe a little bit firmer slightly. Yeah. And just, go with your gut a bit. And so if it doesn't feel right, instead of just going, oh, look, it'll be okay. These humans, they said it's all good and they're on board. If it doesn't feel right, then you don't have to believe it or accept it, I think.
So for our listeners, I know your incredible background. Maybe walk us through where you guys kind of started and then how you kind of went through that merger.
Yeah, sure. So, we started just the two of us, me and Jesse. We did a small piece of work for a friend of his who, he had a restaurant business. He opened it up right before COVID and then didn't go too well. The landlord and people not coming because he couldn't get out of the house, and he struggled, so he ended up in a position where financially wasn't doing great. And so he got thrown a lifeline by a friend of his that was in the gas industry, and said, look, if you can pull something together, we could give you some work in this space, but you're going to have to put something together. So he came to Jesse and he said, I need a website to show that I've got a business and that I'm doing this work, and I'll sort the rest of it out. So yeah, it was December 4 years ago, and yeah, Jesse. So our kids went to the same school, and so we met at Dad's camp out many years ago.
Cool.
Yeah, so we were the dads that would stay awake and drink all the beers out of all the eskies until the sun came up, and then
Dad's camp sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's like basically all the PNC put it on, and it's all the fathers of the children camp on the Oval.
Oh, great.
For a night, and they do it with the kids. And so when the kids go to bed, or even before they go to the bed, the dads just get on the beers.
The party starts.
Yeah, and I think if the mums knew what was going on there, they probably wouldn't want them to go. It's the time where, and this is probably quite a little bit stereotypical, so I apologise if
that's right.
I'm a bit sensitive about it. But, generally I think the mother-type relationship, they're quite a bit more anxious about what their child is up to, and safety and concerns and stuff.
They carried them for 9 months, so it's natural.
Exactly. Where normally the men are a little bit less so. So funny situation sitting there. One of the dads is sitting next to me in a camp chair. He's had 3 or 4 beers, and his wife rings and she says, "Oh, how are the kids?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, excellent." So she's like, "Have you fed them?" And he's like, "Yeah, definitely." Are they, have you seen them recently? Yeah, they were just here. So great, Norris hangs up. Now, because we've been sitting together for about 3 hours, he hasn't seen his kids for those whole 3 hours. So he has no idea if they've been fed or anything else, but that's the story.
Where were the kids?
They were hanging out together, eating lollies, climbing on the roof of the school.
Having a ball.
Really, a lot of fun. That's why they loved it so much. But yeah, so we met there, and then that's how he knew that I was in IT. And so he asked if I could build the website, and I hadn't been on the tools for a long time, so I said, "I'll give it a go," and I just built a WordPress website for him, and then he ended up using that website to win a small contract. And so then he came back and he said, "Oh, that's really great, it's awesome, but now I need a system to manage the jobs." And so Jesse came back again and said, "Could you build a system?" I said, "No, that's a bit out of my depth now, maybe 10 years ago." And so he said, "Well, what about managing a team of people?" I said, "Yeah, I could do that. That's what I do now." At the time I was managing product teams that were building mobile apps and APIs and stuff. So I said I could do that in my nighttime, have a team. So we ended up reaching out to some people we knew who were in Pakistan, put a small team together, just 3 or 4 people, and just ended up managing them at nighttime.
Great.
To build the first sort of product for him, and then sort of grew from there. So he was a client with us, I guess exactly 4 years ago, and he's still a client with us today. Wow. So we're still building things for him, and it's quite interesting. If you think of his story, he went from, the prospect of losing his house and his family being homeless to he has a highly successful business now.
Wow.
He's got contracts in, Water Corp and Western Power and ATCO, and he's got a massive business. And really, really doing well. And we've been with him through that whole growth journey. And so we've been providing the technology support basically to grow his business. As his business grew, his technology needs increased. So we've scaled with him, if that made sense from that perspective. And then, word of mouth got out and we got more clients. And then I think it was about maybe May or a bit later, maybe July, where we both left our jobs full-time, our full-time jobs. Jesse a bit before me, I think he left in maybe February, and he ended up winning a consulting gig, and then I left in June or something and joined him. And it's funny how these things work, and I say this to people when they say, "What is advice for scaling your business?" Is sometimes people don't know what they need, and so the hardest bit is getting that first dollar off them. So in that particular case, what we did was Jesse was in there and he was consulting and he was earning from that, and I just went in to help. Not getting paid, no contract, nothing. So we just said to them, he said to them, "Oh, look, got my colleague Jason, he's got 2 weeks free. Notice you guys need a bit of help in this space. Don't worry, he's just going to come in and help you with this. No, it costs nothing." So just come in and just help him a bit. And so then at the end of the 2 weeks, even though I had nowhere to go, just saying to them, "All right, well, I've got to go to the next client now, so I've got to wrap things up." They're like, no, you can't go. Can you stay on? I think it would be really good if you continued working on this. It's like a transformation process of transforming how the team was working. And we only just started that journey. So they, of course, wanted it finished. So then next thing you know, you got 2 billable people. And then from there you go, well, how do I now go to scale it further? Because it's just, at the moment, it's just that both of us earning an income. It's not really scaling the business. So then we went and found somebody who's better at the job. And at the time, this was something I don't even like doing, which was business analysis was the actual job, refining tickets, working with the stakeholders, like refining pieces of work and basically planning out their product direction, which I don't mind, but it's not my favourite piece of work. I just found somebody who was better at it than me. And then I said to them, hey, there's a lot of work here. I'm going to bring my colleague in just to sit with us. Don't worry, you don't have to pay for them. Bring them in. So then there's 3 of us sitting there.
Great.
And then they just liked her better. And so they just started talking to her, which was the whole plan, right?
Yes,
and
so it worked.
The next thing they know, they're like, oh, this is going to be hard for you to hear, but would it be okay if she stays and instead? I'm like, oh, it's going to be tough, but okay.
Yeah, that's what we wanted.
Yeah, so then I could go off and try and win the next piece and do that again. So get to a point of where you're sort of scaling your business out. So we got to, probably 20 staff-ish, and I think it's been 18 months or so.
Wow, that's fast growth, yeah.
And then we were in Leaderville in a little office, and we had a really good culture, and it was really fun. Like, I remember when we were about somewhere between sort of 15 and 20 staff was probably when I would say it was, that's the most fun. It was probably, we had a lot of control over the business.
Yeah, most
work.
enjoyable.
It was really enjoyable. We were really close with all the people. We knew everything that was going on. But yeah, Jessie and I had aspirations to go bigger. So that's when the opportunity came up with Blue Sky, where they were struggling a bit and they needed someone to sort of take it over.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's funny, we didn't have much time because they were going to go like completely bust. So,
right.
This is what I was saying about in terms of your how you are in business. We could have waited and we would have got financially a better deal. We would have had more control, but we didn't want, they were good guys. We didn't want them to suffer. So I feel like we helped them out when we shaped a deal that was really good for them and hopefully good for us in the long run, and it seems to be okay. But yeah, so we sat down with our team actually at the time, which, I was saying might have been 18 people or so, and we said, look, we've been doing really well, everyone's happy, we've been growing and we're on the right track, and we've got this opportunity. And for us to take this on, it's going to take a lot of our time, like mine and Jessie's, because there's so much work to do to figure out their clients and where they're at with their bills and what work they've got to bring everything together to make one sort of business.
Yeah, so much.
Yeah, so we had to say to the team, you guys are going to have to continue with the work we're doing pretty much on your own. And so if you're not up for the challenge, tell us now, because it ain't going to work any other way. So we're either all on the same page, we can do this, or you guys are like, it's not possible and let's forget about it, because otherwise we're going to fail. So there's no point even going on the journey. So they all said, and I remember Lauren, she's our marketing comms manager. She was one of the people who was like, she's very cautious in general, right? She's a very cautious person. And she said, that sounds exciting. I think we should do it. And so her approval in that sense meant a lot, because I feel like if she wouldn't have said, I was expecting her to be a bit more cautious about it. So anyway, we just decided, let's go ahead and go on that journey. And it's funny because we told our staff, it's going to be really hard year. The culture is going to go backwards. It's going to be a lot of stress because you're going to be in situations where you don't have much support. You're going to be with people you don't know who are probably going to be upset that you're there and changing things. It's going to be a new building, a new everything, and that's going to be really hard. And so for the next year, you're not going to be that happy. And everyone's like, yeah, no worries. And then when you go on that journey, they forget that we had that conversation. Yeah. And they're like, it sucks. It's like, yeah, we know it sucks. It was always going to suck. It's but, a year on, and it's been nearly, in May it'll be 2 years, and I think we've finally got to a point now where largely the people who didn't want to be on that journey have gone, and the people who are left they're a part of the team, and they see the same success that we see in the vision. And we've in that time we've put together a board. So we have a board now that runs the company. We have an executive structure.
Great.
A lot more discipline and processes in place, and it's in a much better place than it has been.
So firstly, ladies, let your husbands go on dad camp, was it, Jace?
Dad's camp out.
Dad's camp out, because great entrepreneurs are clearly fostered in that culture.
That's right,
Jace, there's such a sense of bravery with everything that you guys seem to have done. is there any, like, I know faith is one thing, but was there any other kind of intuition or guiding light that kind of led you guys to do the things that you've done? Because that takes some serious balls.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that I'm lucky in the sense that Jessie and I have a similar upbringing when we were children, and that's coming from one of not much stuff. In my own journey, like I spent some time being homeless, and I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
And so I guess the thing is, and people say, oh, you know, I went through the whole story, but like, oh, it's a bit sad or whatever. And yes, it is. I can't change it.
Please share if you're comfortable.
Oh yeah, I mean, like my mum got a new partner, and he didn't like me, so she convinced my dad to take me. And at the time, I only saw him maybe once a year. He wanted to take me because he would get a reduction in child support, so he was happy with that. I ended up being there about 3 months when he was married to a step mum who didn't have any experience with children, and sort of her view was that kind of like that traditional Cinderella style. So if you have a child, it's kind of like a slave.
Right.
So at the time I was trying to study, and I would have to come back from school and do chores and make dinner and do whatever, right? And then one day one of my friends said, do you want to go to Hungry Jack's after school before you go home? And I said, oh, not really, I'm supposed to go and do my chores. But he's like, we'll just go quickly. So I went with him, came back a little bit late, and my stepmom asked me, where have you been? And I just lied and said, yeah, I was in the library studying. And she's like, you weren't. I called the school and they said you left at a normal time, like 3 o'clock, and you weren't in the library. And so then she got really annoyed, and she picked up a plate and she smashed it on my head. And then she said, get out of the house. So I went out into the backyard, and my dad came and he said, look, we're going to sort this out. It's all good. Is there somewhere where you can go tonight, and tomorrow it will all blow over and it'll be all fine? I said, yeah, no worries. So I messaged a friend of mine and said, can I stay on your couch tonight? I said, yeah, no worries. And at the time I didn't have much stuff. So anyway, so I got my school bag and a few clothes and whatever and went there. And then I woke up in the morning and I got a text from my dad that basically said, I don't want anything to do with you anymore. I'm going to choose my wife at the time. Don't contact me. I'll drop off your stuff wherever you want me to drop it off. And that's pretty much it. So then from that point on, I didn't really have anywhere to live. So then, just sort of like trying to get a job. And I actually went to Centrelink. It's probably gone off track a little bit. Yeah, and it's interesting, like being in that position, I often look at the situation of like what do you want to call it, like the support that's offered to people in disadvantaged situations is usually really good. But you find out when you're in the receiving end of that how complicated some of it is. So imagine, I go into the Centrelink office and I tell them, okay, so I don't have any money. This is my situation. This just happened. I just need, I don't know if you have food stamps or whatever, so I can just eat or whatever, something, right? They said, here's some forms, fill these out. I was like, great, I'm massive, like, I don't know, 50 pages. Cool.
How old were you, Jay? Sorry?
15.
15, okay. Yeah.
And so then filling out these papers, and then I gave it in. They said, yep, so it's a 30-day wait, and then 30 days to review the application, and then a 30-day waiting period. So around 2 months, they will determine whether or not you can get support.
Yeah.
Which I was like, okay, but what do I do between now and then?
Yeah.
And they're like, nothing I can do.
So no food coupons, anything like that?
Well, maybe there is nowadays, but back then, no, it wasn't. Yeah. Well, not that they told me anyway. So unfortunately, I had to sort of make do with, some practices that I'm probably not too proud of, but you do what you do.
You kind of had no choice, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So I mostly survived on rice crackers and peanut butter, and I was applying for jobs, and I ended up lucky enough to get a job at McDonald's doing night shift in William Street, which was
and that built some character working at McDonald's.
Oh yeah, especially that was at the time was the only store that was open 24/7. So all of the really fun people would come through there.
Oh, I can just imagine customer service skill set, right?
So going back to what the bravery around it is, when you're in a situation like that and you have nothing and there's no support for you, you trust yourself. You have to get yourself out of it. And so going forward in business is when you make decisions knowing full well that the worst thing that can happen is you go back there. And you've been there before. So it sucked, but it's not the end of the world. Yeah. You'll be able to get out of it again. So I think that helps, and I think Jessie's quite similar in that regard. And so when we make decisions, we probably are a little bit more risky, at risk taking than other people would be. But also we're big believers in, a lot of other small, medium enterprise type owners, they will early on when they get to a certain size, they'll start to take money out of the business to like fund their lives and that.
Yeah.
And, a few people who've sort of like we've talked to along the way and have helped us with a few things have always said that they're quite surprised by the sort of size of the business we have, considering how frugal we live in our normal lives. Like we don't get paid a lot. We don't drive fancy cars. We don't use company expenses to go on private jets. We don't do stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
not yet, eh?
Not yet, yeah. Maybe one day. I mean, look, it sounds appealing.
It looks glamorous.
Yeah. But we reinvest all the money back in. So that's why we can do
smart
stuff like acquire Blue Sky and, in the future acquire more businesses. So instead of taking money out and living the high life, it's like, how do we put that back in and grow even further, invest in our people, invest in our products, our services. And so we've been doing that largely.
And how big is your team now?
We've got about 60 staff.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And is that, did you say that's kind of a merge of how many, like some of your staff and some of the Blue Sky staff as well? Yeah,
well, originally I think when we did the merger, we probably had about 40 staff and they had about 60. And so originally, the start of the merger, there was about 100 people.
Yeah.
And then over the space of the 2 years, we've been, refining things, and there's a lot of duplication. So, reshaping how that all works, and people have left, and we found better ways to manage that work. So we were able to do more than what we were doing before with less.
Yeah.
So, we're doing more work than when we had 100 people with 60.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
So, there's a bit of a process through that. And I think, naturally, as a whole separate topic, but with the emergence of AI and some of the stuff we're doing around that, it's actually changing the way our team formations are and how we actually undertake work. And, and so that'll do another big change. I think that our industry is probably the first one to be disrupted and the most likely to be completely overhauled by AI. And so we're open to that and paying attention to it and making sure we're on the forefront of that.
How do you think it's going to impact our industry?
So like for our business, largely I'd say 90% or 80% of our staff are technical software engineers. So they write computer code mostly. I mean, there's other aspects to it. They do, solutions and they talk to clients, etc. But majority of the work is writing computer code. And especially in the last 2 or 3 months, Claude 3.5 Sonnet has become so advanced in writing code. It's actually better at writing code. I shouldn't say better. It's really good at writing code. And so as that continues to advance, there comes a time in not too distant future where humans probably won't need to write code anymore.
Yeah.
And so for us, we're looking at a business with 80-90% of our staff who write code, but no one needs to write code anymore. What do you do with all of that? Yeah,
precisely.
And how do you shape your business? And I think longer term, if you're thinking about, so predominantly, we build enterprise systems, and they took effort to build. So, 3 or 4 months, you'd get like, a good system with a mobile app and a front end, and, they'd largely take 4 months of a full-time team, 4 or 5 people to build. So quite intensive. And you imagine if the AI can generate most of that code, all of a sudden it wouldn't take 4 months anymore. It would only take maybe weeks.
Yeah, the time frame gets narrowed,
Which means you can be more competitive on price. And so I really see for our industry, so historically the last sort of, say, 10 years ago, there was a big push in off-the-shelf platforms because it was a subscription-based, you get it for a little bit of value. In the early days, it was really popular because you could get a lot of value for your clients and your business with the subscription. But what's happened over that space, that 10 years, is that those companies offering those platforms have started to flood the market. So now everybody has the same platforms, and so everybody uses the same tools.
Right.
And so now to be more competitive, businesses are needing to think about how can they offer more value, more service, faster, cheaper, whatever, to win more clients.
Yeah.
And it's not through off-the-shelf system, because any features that they get, their competitors get too. And so then often where we've been successful in the last 2 years is, talking to people about, we can build you one that's perfect for your business model and how you want to work. And that's been largely successful. So now imagine if I can say that to somebody and say, instead of it costing $100,000, say, it's only going to cost 20. So now all of a sudden it's highly competitive to off-the-shelf software. And so I actually think off-the-shelf products will probably start to, diminish as people go, well, I can just build my own thing. And the reason for that is I have my brand on it. I have it the way I want it. I can make a process and a model that suits the way my people work and my customers want to be serviced. And so that I think will be a complete shift.
Yeah.
And so I do liken it too. So, we had the .com boom where people who built websites did really well in business. Yes. And then there was the emergence of mobile phones, and then app development businesses made lots of money. And the reason is, big companies or any corporates, they're a bit slow to sort of take up on it. So they would have had a web team, and they don't have the skills to build mobile apps, so they would outsource it. So the outsourcing provider would have made really good profit on that sort of project. And over time, they've gone, we need those people internally, they've trained them up, and it takes time.
Yeah.
And now everybody has that. It's sort of like that with AI, where internally that people don't have the time or the resources to invest in implementing it and building stuff from it, whereas companies like ours, we do have the time and the capacity to do that. And so we become experts in it, which means we can largely take advantage of that, build really good product, sell it in, and be the first ones there to turn it into something.
And I guess would that mean some of the people that would normally be doing, that job, because this is what I wonder, would they still be employed, or what do they end up doing?
Yeah, I think there's still room for them. I see their roles changing a little bit, and this, this conversation's as old as software engineers are, where there's these different views of them. There's the one in the dungeon who can't speak to customers, who's really good at writing code.
Yes.
I don't know how useful those type of engineers will be in the future, where I feel you're still going to need humans to interpret what people want, help them solutionize it, come up with a solution and a description for making that work. It's still problem solving. So, and this is the thing, engineers generally are problem solvers. And so those two things need to come together. They need to be a good problem solver, and they need to be a really good communicator. And if they are both those two things, then there's always a role for them, because somebody needs to instruct the machines on what to do.
Yeah.
So even though there's no doing, and the best way I can describe this is a time when, in construction, you would have had a team of, say, 20 people digging footings of a building with a shovel, and they're digging it by hand, right? And then the first guy comes along with an excavator. He drives it onto site, and all the people with shovels look at him and they go, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Well, then the person driving was, well, this can dig faster than you, more sand than you, it's more accurate, blah, blah, blah. So the ones that are cluey go, I'm going to learn how to drive the excavator instead of digging with a shovel. And there's the ones that don't. They dig their heels and go, you're not going to take my job away from me. I'm a digger. Yeah. And then that's it. And then so that's going to be the divide. So those people, they sort of get left behind.
Of course, yeah. It's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, and there's always going to be people who want somebody on the shovel. So I think those people will be around for a long time. It's just, it won't be everywhere. So a business like ours, we're lucky that it's exciting. We're always at the forefront because we're always doing new things. Where in business, like larger corporates, they have things that are around for a long time, like very old and big systems. They're not going to suddenly wake up tomorrow and, redo everything. So there's always going to be a need for those engineers there.
Yeah.
It's just in the kind of work we do, it's not probably going to work that way.
And Jess, I'd love to know, what does it mean to you to be one of Perth's leading software development teams?
Yeah, look, I think I spent a lot of time in corporates before and in software development, and I always found issues with the way stuff was done and the way solutions were put together. And I think a lot of it came down to politics, people not understanding. And I always thought, when we do our own thing, I want to make a team that does things the right way, that does things, it sounds a bit pig-headish, but stuff how it should be done.
Yeah.
And take pride in that. And so two things about it is, I think we want to be the largest, and I'm saying largest because not just out of a vanity metric, but more that when you get to a certain size, you can do large projects. So when you're small, you can only sort of help. Where you get to a size like we are now, we can actually do an entire transformation, or we can rebuild an entire platform or system, and that opens up the door to really exciting opportunities.
Yeah.
And being leaders is, I want people to look to us to go, what is a good way to do this? What is the best? Best is a bit funny term, but what is a good way to do this? How can we do this better? And we be experienced enough, because we've seen so many different things and we work with so many different clients. We have a really good understanding of what good looks like. And And then we can help people with that and go, well, I've seen it done these 5 ways. This is probably a really good way for you because here's a similar example of what's happened because we've seen it over and over again. And it gets to the point where you start to, you realise that, because we work in all industries. And so people think that if they're in medical or mining, the two of them, they have nothing in common.
Yeah.
But the truth is they have the same problems and it's the same thing. Largely it's always the same. It's, people want to be able to track their work, log their time against work, see the status of work, assign work to people, be able to invoice it and account for it.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same. It doesn't matter if it's a mine site or it's a medical centre, or a trucking company. They all want to do the same thing. Largely the words are different, the screens look different and the flow is slightly different, but ultimately it's the same thing over and over again. And so it gives you a bit of confidence to be able to talk to people and say, well, I know you think this is rocket science, but it actually isn't. And we can only say that because of experience, right? It potentially is daunting to people who aren't in that field. And so, give you an example, like where a fairly large company, fairly large IT team, hundreds of people, they needed to make a mobile app. And they just said, we'll get a quote. And they got a quote for it from, I think, another vendor. And they said, no, we'll do it ourselves. So their internal team, who's not experienced in building mobile apps, right? So think about it, even a big company, they might build one mobile app every 10 years. We build mobile apps every month. Yeah. So per year, we're building hundreds of apps. So I have a lot of experience in that. So they went to their internal team and they said, how hard can it be? We'll build a mobile app. 18 months later, still no mobile app. $1 million spent, nothing to show for it.
Wow.
So the original quote might have been, say, $200,000 to build this thing. They came back and then we said, yep, we'll honour the quote, we'll build the app, and then 3 months later the app is finished. Yeah. And it's to standard, it's good quality, it works and it delivers. So it's that kind of thing where it's not that they can't do it, they just don't have the experience. And the leader there is like, their people are pushing on, or don't outsource that, or don't get someone else to do it. But it's sort of the same old thing is, if you, like, you could do the retic at your house, but if you don't do it every day, you're not going to be as efficient or do a good job as if someone who does it 5 times a day. So it's just trying to weigh that up and, yeah.
Jace, I noticed, do you struggle with the idea of being the best?
Yes.
Why?
Yeah, absolutely. Self-esteem probably more than anything. I don't like to, most people that know me is like I don't often big note myself or anything like that. So I do struggle with the idea of admitting that I am good at what I do or that things are amazing. I sort of downplay it all the time.
Are you great at what you do?
I think so.
Yeah. It's I find it interesting because I noticed as you were speaking about being the best, and there was something else you mentioned before, you said it sounds big-headed, but I mean, considering everything that you've been through, being homeless growing up, the things that you've endured and where you guys are at now, that's something to be so proud of.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It's hard to accept. I don't know why. I think it comes from if people, I guess trauma more than anything. People tell you that you're not good enough or you'll never become anything, and it's hard to then fight against the voices inside your head.
Yes, I have some of those as well. I have a few.
Yeah.
Do you find with time it's kind of gotten a bit easier to kind of deal with those voices that we all have in our head?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like when you get to sort of later stages in, so I'm approaching my 40s now, and so I think that around the time the last few years really starting to reflect a lot more about how I think about things and what I'm doing and trying to change those. Well, unfortunately, if you've thought one way for whatever 35 years of your life, it's not that easy to just simply change the way you think. But I guess the first step is figuring out why you think like that, and then trying to catch yourself and talking to your inner voice and convincing it you don't know what you're talking about. But easier said than done. Yeah.
Of course, yeah. Like you said, I mean, there's actually neural pathways, and I've listened to a lot of podcasts around this. If you almost condition your brain to, when something happens, you respond or think in a certain way. So it's hard yards to try and unwire all that, like you said, 35 years of thinking. It's really hard work. Enlighten us. Is there anything else that you've kind of reflected on that you'd be comfortable to share?
Yeah, look, I think one of the things we did early on and helped me just in my journey was, it's about if you want to be the best, right? In your business, and you want the best for your people. And a lot of people focus on technical expertise, and it doesn't matter what the industry is, or like prowess, skills around
Yes.
whatever their job is, everyone forgets the mental aspect of it. And so I think that as a leader or as anybody, getting support in that space, whether it's a counsellor, psychologist, psychiatrist, just talking to those people, and it's almost like you're better off talking to them when you're okay, or you think you're okay, because then you can tune up your performance rather than waiting until you're completely in crisis.
Yes.
And then going to these people, and then you've got to deal with the crisis. But you might actually be able to avoid all of that if you go when you're not in a crisis mode, work on everyone has things that they could improve.
Totally.
And be a better version of themselves. So it's like you go to the gym to tone up your body. Why would you not go to a psychologist and tone up your mind? I mean,
That's a good point.
People don't think like that. They think, if you go there, you must be broken. Well,
yes.
I hate to break it to anyone who's listening, is we all have our things and there's nobody who's perfect. And so if you're sitting there thinking that there's nothing you can change or improve, I think you should take another look at yourself.
Very, very, very wise advice. And I love that you shared that people should really, consider doing stuff like this before you're in that crisis mode, because I know, having been there, you're almost in such a deep dip that it's kind of hard to really even be open-minded to what the person's saying, because you're in such a dark place. And I think it's even harder to try and come out on the other side, and you almost resist against what the person is saying because you're in such a dark place, literally.
Yeah. And I think when you talk to people, they'll tell you, let's help you get out of the hole, and then we can start working on more proactive things, and that takes time.
Yeah.
So imagine if you got in there before you were in the hole, and then you're in a good mental place to actually make some change that is for the better of your whole life, then you might avoid that completely, and that's amazing, right?
And Jace, like I said at the beginning of the episode, you're very heart-centered and you're always open and you share. Have you always been like that, or have you found through your life's journey and by speaking to other people, you've kind of become more that way?
Definitely. I think I used to not speak at all.
Really?
I used to hide it inside and just pretend like everything's okay.
Which is dangerous.
Yes. And so over time I realised that it's actually empowers other people. I think if you can be vulnerable and you can say how it really is, other people, their guard goes down. They're actually, we're all in the same sort of boat.
Yeah.
And I think so often, especially on podcasts or whatever with people in business, they all say, not all, some people say some really untrue things.
100%.
Like how awesome everything is. Yeah, like everything's great. Oh, so easy. I'm a superstar. Blah.
I'm so busy.
The truth is it's really tough. Right?
Definitely.
And just being honest about that and saying, what the real challenges are, and then people have more respect for you, I think, in that way. And then they're also more willing to share and go, I find the same, and you can bond over that. And that's one of the things I know we're both in the Panorama Club.
Yes.
I think that's one of the things I really like about that place is when I first sort of started going there, you think it's more for networking and getting to know people, but you find that, and I find this why they're different in people. They don't come up to you and ask you what you do.
Yeah.
They ask you who you are. They want to know about you, right? And they want to know the real reason why you're in business and the struggles you face. And when you can share that with them, they share with you, and then you have like a bond, and that bond is deeper than any piece of business. So the funny thing is, after that, and it's happened to me a few times where I'd go into a situation where I didn't know at the time that there'll be another member in that, like in a business context, whether it's like pitching for work or whatever, and they've gone, hey, I know you from the club.
Yeah, it's a secret code.
Yeah, and then like we don't actually need to have this conversation because we're happy to work with you.
Yeah.
Because they know that you take it seriously. There's more depth to it. It's not a face value thing. And because it comes down to, if there's an issue, they know that you have the fortitude and the personality to work through it with them. And that's what people really want. They want to be able to trust you. And so you can never guarantee, that something's going to work out. But if you believe in the person you're talking to and you know that they're with you, you'll know it'll be okay.
Yeah.
So then that's why you accept that. You're like, yep, okay, let's do it. Versus trying to convince somebody, using,
trying to shove a business card in their face. Lydia will kick us out, but yeah.
Yeah, like a facade, and I think I liken it to the Chinese way of doing business, and I quite like that, where they do, before they do a big business deal, they'll invite you over and then they'll take you out and they'll get you absolutely shit-faced.
Oh, really?
Yes, because they want to see the kind of person you are.
Interesting.
Not with all of your big words and your suit and all the rest of it. They want to see you at your worst because that really shows them the kind of person you are, and then they decide whether they can do business with you or not.
Yeah. I didn't realize that's how they operated. That's I might adopt that one.
Yeah, it's quite good. Yeah, that's right.
It's really good.
Because you see who they really are, and then because you're not doing business with the company, you're doing business with the person.
With the person,
and
yeah.
So you've got to know what you're dealing with, and I think it's quite intelligent in a lot of ways.
Definitely. And I think people often forget that they're actually dealing with another human on the other side of that. And yeah, I know we had a DNM at Panorama Club, and it was really great to get to know you better. And just the way that because you're so comfortable within yourself and the way you hold space for people, I think it's really a superpower of yours.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I was like, you have to come on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks. No, I appreciate it. I like sharing, so.
Yeah, and just as a guy, it's really good to see that you do that, because I think a lot of men, and I'm not just trying to put all guys in one box, a lot of men think they have to be strong all the time, they have to have this facade, they have to always carry themselves in a certain way. So I think it's really great that you kind of open up that space for them to really say, you know what, I'm not okay. There's a lot going on, even as a business owner, because like we said, so many people say I'm busy, it's going great. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, everything's falling apart and they up at 3 a.m. vomiting because they have no idea how they're actually going to function the next day. So I think it's really great that you open that space and that conversation.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
And Jace, any other challenges in business that you'd be comfortable sharing? Is there perhaps like a top one that comes to mind? And you could perhaps give our listeners a bit of advice around that?
The only thing I'd say is commonly get asked, around people who are starting out in their business, I guess what the right size of the business is. And so I think I'd share with people is it's quite a personal thing. But I would say that under sort of 20 staff, I think you're in a position where you have a lot of control over your business. So if you're somebody who needs to know exactly all the detail of what's going on, you probably don't want it to be much bigger than that.
Yeah.
It also is a good size where you probably, total revenue, no, but in terms of personal wealth generation is probably a really good size for that. The thing with it is at that size, you'll probably always have to be in the business. Not that easy to set them up to run by themselves because, small enough that clients expect you to be part of it or at least involved in some way. And then I would say after that, it's quite challenging to grow bigger than that because you have to let go of a lot of things. And as you get larger, like towards that sort of 100 people mark, you have to have really good systems in place and really good processes and structure. And if you don't, or if there's any gaps in that, it cannot come down pretty quick. And that was in our experience, when we had a pretty challenging year this year where, we didn't have a lot of that structure because we grew so fast. We didn't.
Yeah, you guys did.
We didn't put in enough process and enough structure in place early enough because as the work was coming in, you just sort of getting more people and chucking them in, and you sort of like take the attitude of you figure it out later, which is fine when the work's coming in at that sort of volume, but when it's not, then you start to see all the mistakes coming through and you can no longer wear them, but the machine is so large, it's not that easy to fix. And for our sake, it got to a point where it would nearly crush the business.
Gee.
So we had a lot of hard work to do to turn that around and fix up the foundation so that we can actually make sure that we can grow sustainably going forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's the learning that I always say to people is don't put off, I know in my own, this is going to sound so funny because we build software, but we didn't have a software system early on for our own stuff, like how we track and manage work, even though we build them for other people. And because we were we'll do it later. Right now we're busy building it for other people, building, work. And then it got to the size where now it's become unmanageable. And now to go and put in a system is such a hard piece of work because you got change management and it's just so much bigger than if we just did it earlier. I think we would have been in a better place because I really feel that the systems can run the process for you. As in you get people to use the system, and as I was saying earlier, is you design it to how you want the work to flow through and how you want your customers engaged. So you don't have to rely on individuals making those decisions. And so as you get larger, you have to rely a lot more on individuals being the face of the company to people making decisions, but they have limited tools and resources to make those decisions. Then often they go a bit off track, and then it's quite hard to get that under control. So that's been a big learning of mine, and getting frustrated around, things that seem simple to you often are not simple to others.
No.
And you feel like you've said it 1,000 times and people nod their heads and say like, cool, they got it, but they don't.
No.
Like,
even 6 conversations later, still not. So you're like, okay.
Right, yeah.
And Jess, it sounds like there was a lot going on at that time. And I think, again, I'm going back to your bravery, because naturally some people just say, look, I'm done. Like, this is too much for me to handle. Did you guys kind of break things down into stepping stones and then kind of work your way through? Was there like a plan that you kind of worked through to kind of get to that better position? Yeah,
look, I think what happened was we got to a point where it did catch us by surprise. And that links back to what I was saying before around, we always knew that we should have good forecasting and budgeting, and trying to get the team to own that and do it religiously was really tough. And so that wasn't going too well. And so we didn't see that we were going to run out of work in a short period of time. It's a combination of things that happened. That happened. There was, at the same time, I think BHP closed all its nickel mines. So we had a really good opportunity there that we ended up losing, which we had resources for. And then a bit of a downturn, people were holding on to cash and being in services. If you're not deployed doing services, you're not making any money. But you've still got all the staff. And, in a business like ours, we have a very diverse range of skill sets. So in order to keep those skill sets for that work, you have to keep them employed.
Yeah.
But at some point that becomes unviable. And so we're in that sort of situation. And, thinking the stuff that you don't think about at the time is all these people have, if you need to make someone redundant, you need to pay out their leave. And so when you're starting to run out of cash, you don't think about that. And so if you're talking at the sort of scale that we have as a business, so the numbers are quite large.
Huge.
And then you're like, hang on a sec, where are we going to get that money from? And so all of that started to sort of get on top. And I think it's interesting, and it was someone we both know, Paul Klassen, he was actually really kind, and, he came in and talked to us a few times. And it's the way he talks, and because what you're saying before is both Jesse and I are sometimes quite humble in that regard, where he's very much like, fuck them, we do this, like get this, kick him in the ass, like you get rid of that.
He's very direct.
That's right. And
but his intentions are good.
Very good, yeah. And so I think some of that is what we needed. And the thing that really stuck with me that he said was, because I felt it as well. So I felt that I was working really hard. Everything I've ever put into this business is here, and it's all on the line now for what?
Blood, sweat and tears, yeah.
And then I started feeling down and then not as motivated. And he was the one who said, businesses don't fail because they run out of money. They fail because the founders give up. So he said, are you going to give up? I said, no. He goes, well, shut the fuck up and turn it around. So, just pull me socks up.
Yeah.
Go, you're right. We'll find a way to make this happen. And like that was, 6-7 months ago. And it's all in a much better place now. I wouldn't say it's like Lamborghinis and yachts, but
not yet.
like we're here, we're not going anywhere, and things are on the right track. So it wasn't like it was any big secret. It's just motivation. It's just, and I think that message, if I could say to anyone, is it's just don't give up.
No.
Like, just remind yourself why you're in it in the first place, why you got into it, and there's always a way out. Yeah.
I love that you've shared that, because I had one of those moments this year as well. I've had a pretty hectic year personally, and I think Paul as well. I was like, I'm done. I think I need to go get a job. Like, that's just not like me. That's almost like a suicidal thought, right? It's like, I'm done. There was tears. There was everything. We know how much Paul loves tears. Anyway, I was like, I think I'm done. I need to just go get a job. And he's like, Tracy, if you give up now, like everything you've kind of worked towards is gone. And he's like, I can tell you now, because when you're a business owner, I think you're a very different type of human. He's like, you will most likely go get a job, hate it, and then come back. Because I had a pattern. Every 2 years, I'd quit my job. He's like, you quit your job, you'll get a job, you'll hate it, you'll probably end up managing people, which is sort of what I do now anyway. And then you'll probably want to quit that and start your business again. And I was like, right, that's a really, really good point. Thanks for that. And it kind of just shifts your mind, and you need someone to, give you that. I think Paul says, like, if someone's drowning, you have to almost thump them to kind of snap them out of it, because your mind just naturally goes into this downward spiral, and you need someone to say, like, pick yourself the fuck up and let's go, you know, because that's what you signed up for. So it's really, really powerful having a mentor, having someone who can pull you out of that mud that we get in every now and then.
And I think also when I talk to people, it's like a common saying that everyone says is you're always a few weeks away from bankruptcy until you're not.
True.
So you ride that out and, you know, eventually if you can make it probably 7-8 years in business, I think at that point you're probably sorted. Each time before that, it's just, you know, a lot of things can really disrupt the business, and I think that the milestones is like the first 4 years, which I think we've just hit now, and I can definitely say that, you know, that was a struggle to get here. Yeah. And now it's turning around and it'll probably happen again somewhere towards the 7 years. You know, And I think after that, if we make it through that point, then I think surely then we've got a legacy and something that's at that point it probably is self-fulfilling and it becomes easy, I think. Yeah. Hopefully.
Yes. And yachts and Lamborghinis.
Maybe, yeah. That's right.
Jace, if there is a business owner out there who is considering having an app built or trying to look at ways they can make their business, I guess, flow a bit more, what would your advice be to them? Or how can they really leverage like an app in their business? Yeah,
look, I think if you have an idea about if you know there's a problem in your business around efficiency, or you know that you're doing a lot of manual handling or a lot of administration type work, and there's definitely a way to do something that will streamline your business process, that will give you more autonomy in the business, more accuracy, and add value. And I think, I'd love to talk to you about that.
Yeah, we'll definitely pop all the links in the show notes as well. Jace, I want to chat about your hair. I think it's a very smart move in terms of your branding and getting noticed out there. And it's called peacocking, right?
Yes, a little bit, yeah.
For our listeners, do you want to walk us through what that is?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I met a young guy, and this is going to sound embarrassing because I went to a PSG event, a people search group, and they had like a sundowner, which I thought was a really cool sort of model they had. They invited everyone in the industry, I guess, who manage people, who could employ people, and then they put you on a table with people who are in similar businesses for no other reason than just to network. And I thought that was quite clever. But one of the guys on my table was from PSG, and he just moved over from London, and he dyed his hair like white. Yeah. And I thought it looked so cool. And so that sat with me for, a while. And then one day I just had this moment where I was like, I just want to do something different. I want to be more noticeable or whatever. Yeah. And I was doing one of these things that other people have told me is weird, but I do this sometimes where I'll go to the shops. I know I need to get stuff, food and stuff. I don't know exactly what. I don't have a list. Yeah. So I literally go starting from the first aisle, all the aisles, and I look at every single thing in every single aisle. And I decided whether I need it or want it or whatever, and I put it in the trolley, right?
Yeah, I do exactly the same. Next one, I've got Bond's underwear. I've got like dry shampoo that I didn't ever need. Yeah.
So I was doing that, and I went through the beauty aisle. I walked past this shelf, and before I did this, I'd never dyed my hair before. It's not quite true, which I'll explain in a sec. But I went through and I saw these packet dyes, and I remembered this guy's hair, and I was like, I wonder if you can just buy a packet dye off the shelf. And there was a packet there, and it said, had the scale where it showed like a really dark brown hair and then blonde hair, and it says like, in one go and blah, blah. And it's like, perfect. I was like, screw it, I'll just buy it.
Because your hair's dark like mine,
Yes. So I put that in the trolley and got home. And so to link back, when I was about probably 16 or 17 maybe, I used to get my hair blonde tipped.
Oh, was it Eminem who started that craze?
Yes.
I think it was, yeah.
So like a 90s
I'm giving away my age,
Yeah, exactly, it was all the rage, so we all did that, right? And I enjoyed that. I did it a couple of times back then. Anyway, but not white, it was like we went blonde.
It's like a frosted tip look?
Yeah. And you had a cap, and they pulled your hair through, and they just dyed the top part of it. Anyway, so I took this packet dye home and, put it in my hair, followed the instructions, and then my hair went orange.
I was going to say. Yeah. I knew that would happen. Yeah, been there and done that too.
And then I was like panicking because I was supposed to fly out to Bali the next day.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, I'm not going with orange hair. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll just do it again. Because obviously having short hair, the packet's for women. So it should last like probably one time on a woman's head, probably 4 times on mine. So I did it 4 times actually.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and then it did get lighter, but it was still very orange. And then I thought, okay, don't panic, what would you do? So I got my phone and I went on OpenAI, ChatGTP,
Yeah.
And I told it the situation, so this is what happened. And it basically told me that the hair dye from the supermarket is not strong enough to completely take the pigment out of your hair. So you have to get these products from, a wholesale supplier. And it gave me a list of the ones that were near me.
Yeah.
I said, okay, I can do this tomorrow morning. I'll get up early. I'll go there and I'll buy the correct product and I'll fix it up. So I did that. I went to the place. I was there 5 minutes early, which if you know me, that doesn't often happen. But anyway, so I was there. I walked in and I took off my hat and I showed them and they laughed and they said, no problem, that's easy, you just need this and this. And I go to pay for it and they go, what hair salon do you own? And I say, I don't own a hair salon. I say, well, can't sell it to you.
Oh, no, because it's wholesale.
Yeah,
right.
we only sell to hair salons.
Oh.
I was like, well, this is a bit shit. So where can I buy it from then? Like, I'm happy to buy a retail price.
Yeah. Just
tell me where to buy it or whatever. And they said, oh, look, we don't know. Like, you could try Priceline. And so I drove out. I waited till 9 o'clock when that opened. I drove out there. They don't sell it.
Oh, so the other place turned away revenue?
Yeah, I think they're not allowed to, I guess. Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, probably.
So I called them back and I said, hey, look, I took your advice. I went here. They don't have it. I'm really stuck. And they said, go to a hairdresser. I said, it's like Friday. I'm flying out tonight.
Yeah.
I can't get into a hairdresser today, So can you just help me? They said, no.
Oh.
So, anyway, long story short, I remember that I knew someone who was in hairdressing and I asked them if they had some product I could have. And they were really good about it. And they said, of course, I'll help you out. So then I ended up driving out there, picking it up. And I actually then went into the basement. And by this time, I will say that I did, because Jesse, my business partner, asked me where I was. And I said, look, I've got a bit of an emergency. To which, I explained it to him and he got pretty pissed off because his view was that, you're running like a fairly large company and you're going around and dyeing your hair like you're 15 years old and screwing it up. And then, God knows, like, what is wrong with you? And, I said to him, my view, and it's our difference in,
of course,
how we are. So he's very conservative. He would never dye his hair. Whereas I'm a bit more not conservative.
Yeah, a bit more quirky.
And creative and stuff. Yeah. So what I saw as in a positive, he saw as a negative.
Right.
So we just had to agree to disagree. Anyway, so to limit the exposure of his madness, I got the stuff and I went into the end of trip facilities in the bottom of the building and I joined the meeting that I was supposed to join with my camera off. And I just put the product in my hair and just pretended like it was all good and I was in the team's meeting and then washed it out and yep, sure enough, all went white. And,
good.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
And everyone saw it and they were like, oh, that doesn't look too bad.
Yeah.
And I just pretended like it was always like that.
Good. Well, I mean, I kind of understand where Jess is coming from, but at the same time, I think it's a really smart move in terms of your brand because it's generated conversation. I see you've done a lot on LinkedIn around it as well. And I was listening to, I can't remember what podcast it was, but they said because we're bombarded by so many things on social media, you almost want to make people, their scroll stop. Like it's called a purple cow. And you said you want to really have that purple cow because someone actually stops and they actually look. So I think it's been really, really good. Then again, I'm a creative and I like different stuff, but I think it's really cool.
Well, the amount of people who actually came to me because we used the hair in like a video on LinkedIn about AI and generation.
Yes,
the amount of people who thought my hair wasn't actually white. And then when they met me, they were like, you did actually make your hair white. I was one of those. Generated. Yeah, like it happened a lot. And so it started that whole conversation around AI, which was fantastic.
See, it's creative.
Back, yeah, and I think even when I first did it, I used this to Jesse to, to stick it to him that it was good, is I went to a networking event right after I did the hair and it was winding up and I was just finishing up my drink and this lady came from the other side of the room. And she said, I love your hair. Oh, see? She goes, would you like to come and join our party? And I said, well, what party is it? She's like, oh, we're 76ers basketball team from over east. Wow. And we're celebrating and we think you should join us. And so I actually went and joined them.
Oh, my goodness.
And then ended up making friends with like the owner of the basketball team, the coach, a few of the players. Wow. And they said, oh, do you want to we're playing at RAC on the weekend. Do you want to come in the coach's box?
Oh my gosh.
Because it'll be so fun. And this is the thing, is that these things don't normally happen to me. So
see,
I'm like, it was all from the hair.
Yeah, yeah. The hair is good.
I did turn it down because I did promise my son I would go and watch it with him.
Oh, fair enough.
I didn't complete the journey, but the opportunity was there, and so that kind of was kind of cool. And yeah, so people ask, will I do it again? I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And I think you've highlighted something really important, Jace. Often we try and like fit within a mold, and we aren't really our authentic selves, or we kind of hang back from dyeing our hair, or perhaps wearing bright pink shoes like I sometimes do. But it kind of goes to show that when you are in your true authenticity and just kind of being different and being yourself, like there are great things that happen, right?
Definitely, yep.
Yeah. Jace, I'd love to know, to finish up, if you could go back and give your 15-year-old self who was homeless, if you could give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
I think I would say, instead of just trying to keep it all in and push forward, I mean, pushing forward definitely still do, but seek some help to guide you through it, because I think some of those things I still feel like that inner voice I was talking about before is probably my 15-year-old self talking to me. And so it's challenging me for the whole rest of my life. And I wish I could have been mature enough to understand what that impact would be and be able to do something about it sooner, so that it would hopefully be able to turn it around faster than it would later in life.
Yeah.
So I'd love to, tell myself to do that, so that I could work through that, and, and a lot of things around forgiveness and not letting it, eat you up inside and not taking it personally.
As it does, yeah.
And just, I think I'd like to tell myself that, people do love you, and you are worth something, and just because a couple of people, treated you this way doesn't mean you're worthless. So that's a message that I wish that he would have got.
Yeah. And I just want to thank you, Jace. Thank you for the conversation. Always love chatting with you. And, I just want to say I am so proud of all you've achieved. I think it's amazing, from being someone who was homeless, and you've just completely worked your way up. And I'm also so inspired by your resilience, because that takes some serious guts to kind of just get back up and keep going every single time, because not many people have that within themselves.
Thank you. That's really kind.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the chat today. Well, guys, we'll definitely pop all the links in the show notes. You can connect with Jason from Horizon Digital. Thanks, Jace.
Thanks, Tracy.
Cool.
Bye.
Cheers.